Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today is James, Dat Yoga Dude Woods, and this is the Feel Free to Feel Free podcast, starring James, Dat Yoga Dude Woods.
What's going on, y'all? This is James Woods, aka That Yoga Dude with Feel Free to Feel Free. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and rock with me and the incomparable, the legendary, amazing Glenn Hunter himself. Happy to be here.
Well, James, with that introduction, I'm going to definitely pass it over to you today because what we're talking about is social emotional learning and substance abuse. And this is a very ripe topic for this time, particularly in our community here in the Inland Empire. A growing community, a thriving community, and also a community that is having to deal with a lot of the social ills that are plaguing us as a region, as a country. And I think James is going to be able to give us some very unique insight how that ties in, working through this will tie in to what he does from a yoga perspective. So SEL, social emotional learning. James, how does that tie in to the challenge of substance abuse?
It ties in an intimate way. And before we tie that in, we're going to tie in the breath. We're going to really explore what that looks like and how we can manage our breath, manage our day, and manage those skills that we need to prevent ourselves from getting into substance abuse. So wherever you are, you know what time it is. Relax the shoulders, relax the chest, relax the arms, and just be here, be in this moment. Thank yourself for clicking on that button and listening to this podcast and receive the rewards of your own breath. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes, relax your lower back, your upper back, soften your face, and we're going to take 3 deep inhales to get this started. On the count of 3, inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3. Deep inhale here, breathe in. Long, slow exhale through the nose. Inhale fills the belly, the lungs, the chest. Inhale, exhale, releases, relaxes, allows the body to soften. One more deep inhale, breathe in. And a slow, long exhale. For that moment, for those breaths, I was able to be at a place of peace, at a place of calm. When I talk to kids, a lot of times that's what they're searching for. When they're drinking, when they're smoking, when they're trying to abuse substances. Of course, it starts out like, hey, I'm exploring it. I'm trying to figure out. The rappers told me to do it. The music told me to do it, but now I'm hooked. And I want to constantly get that feeling. Being able to give that feeling to ourselves of relaxation and calm and peace is one of the most instrumental things of just building healthy coping skills, as well as allowing ourselves to just feel good without having to buy something, go search for something, and deal with the detrimental effects of being connected to a substance abuse. So jumping into the breath is one of the easiest things for me to understand. Hey, I could take a breath and back away and develop and build the skills that I need to cope with the stress of life without trying to go to a smoke shop or go to a corner or go somewhere else to get the substances that I think I need to build what I already have within myself, the ability to relax, calm down, and manage my stress. So I like to always start with the breath when I have that conversation about substance abuse.
Outstanding. And I think it's important that we realize that strength is within us. I mean, just the breathing, as you've articulated and demonstrated, does help with our ability to cope. Unfortunately, the coping comes in waves, or not the coping so much, but the stress, the anxiety comes in waves. You battle it down once, but here comes another one. When you think about social emotional learning, how does that actually work in battling some of those impulses that create the tense and the anxiety that does result in substance abuse?
Well, when I was a kid, they told us to just say no when we were battling those different things. And as you said, saying no every time, it can get a little bit harder, get a little bit more difficult. But when we're talking about social emotional learning and developing the skills, we are actually growing our muscle of resistance and resilience against substance abuse. So the more skills we attain, the more breathing techniques, the more mindfulness techniques, meditation techniques, the more clinical practices, therapeutic, the more group practices that we develop and learn, the more we build that muscle up to say, you know what, I don't even need the type, I don't even need substances, right? Like that's not even what I need. I have all these other tools and I'm lining up, I'm developing, I'm building my muscles up. And so it gives me options. When especially kids feel like they don't have any options, like it is, I either smoke this or I continue to suffer the anxiety. I either drink this or I continue to feel depressed. And you feel like you don't have those options as a kid, as a person in general. A lot of times they feel like only thing I can do is smoke this, drink this, do whatever. So in social emotional learning, we're giving them options and we're helping them to build the skills to develop their resiliency muscle and help them to build on, hey, I got this skill to use in this situation. Because like I said before, no doesn't work in every situation. But when you have maybe a breath for this situation or a stretch for this situation or a way to cognitively think about your situation, it can add to it and help you to support your resistance against substances.
You know, as you're talking about these specific tools, they've been proven effective as children, as our youth start to try to modify their behaviors to be more in tune with a healthier perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of the coin is, frankly, the temptation is not a one-trick pony. The
Right.
culture glorifies substance abuse. When you think about it through our readings, through our music, so even
Right.
though you create these coping skills, there is a counterpunch from the culture.
Right.
So what are your recommendations for managing that second wave of temptation?
It is a, as you said, counterpunch. It is a bob and weave. It's moving. They can't move out the way of the constant just inundation of sex, drugs, rock and roll. It's been there. It's going to be there, you know. But they can move to a different place in their own self, in their own mind. You can't escape what you're going to hear on the radio, what you see on TV. You're going to know the lingo. But when you understand this is what they're trying to tell me about escaping life, but I have these tools to actually manage life and deal with life, it becomes a different thing. It becomes a punch that doesn't have as much power. When you can stand on, yeah, I know how to relax. I know how to feel good. I know how to have a party within myself. And you have these other skills to build and develop on, especially when you understand the importance of what I put in my body affects my daily outcome. It affects my what I want to get done. It affects who I am and my value. When you have those SEL skills that adds value to your life and you see that drug abuse and substance abuse is something that is detrimental to the value that you've built up over your experiences and just the straight up the value that you've created for yourself through the development of your SEL skills. So you don't want to mess with that value. You don't want to take that away. You want to continue to build on it, and you don't see substances as something that will build on it. So the more you can step into your practices, the more you like, smoking this it messed up my meditation, it messed up my yoga practice. I wasn't able to focus as much. I wasn't able to have that clear head that I usually have after doing this breathing. I got that choice and I got that value. I'm going to go with the highest value choice for myself to move forward. This is what we want to happen. Now we know still the music industry, the entertainment industry is very strong. They put a lot of money and invest a lot of time into pushing what they push. So that's why we need to invest more money, energy, and time into social emotional learning skills so they can have an understanding of who they are. And they can have an understanding of the tools that they have at their disposal to not be disposed by substances.
You know, I think that's a very important message. Like you said, that from a social emotional learning perspective, from a anti-substance abuse perspective, that there are resources being put specifically in place, not just lip service, not more than a PSL, but that there's specific resources that are being engaged that are communicating with our youth, not just preaching to them, but literally creating a bilateral communication so that both sides are clearly heard, and more importantly, cooler heads will prevail.
Yeah. And when I work with youth and I listen to them and I learn from them, and they're looking for something to deal with the surmounting stress that is on their life.
Mhm.
And when the drugs and everything else is more available, once again, it goes back to that choice. Hey, his is here. And when I talk to teachers and educators, a lot of times it just become a habit where you have a substance to help you take an edge off of coming back from pandemic, take the edge off of maneuvering with staff and everything else. So it's about giving options and helping to see value through the practices of social emotional learning and wellness, and helping you to feel good at the same time.
You're talking about the value and more structured environments. There's a statistic that showed as school attendance declined in the heat of the pandemic. One of the results was that there was a 34% increase in 911 drug calls for youth, and that happened to be in that 2019-2020 window. So sort of the front end of the pandemic into the heat of the pandemic, there was an increase in 911 drug calls.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on both that call, but what drove that increase?
I don't have supervision. I don't have access to my support system. I'm at home all day. I'm anxious. The supervision I have is not supportive of me. It's a lot of things that can drive those adolescents to using those substances. And 34% was reported, but only God knows the amount of substance abuse that wasn't reported, that the calls didn't get made. And then you mix that with the adults who didn't know what was going on. So it was just everybody was anxious, everybody was lost. And when you can go to a substance to give you a feeling that's familiar or give you a feeling that's escape, we get those 911 calls. And a lot of the practices that we talk about at SEL are things that are practices that people can use at home anytime. They're practices that can go along with them on their life journey. Hey, I can do yoga at home. I can breathe while I'm at the dinner table. So we're talking about providing them with some skills and tools that are adaptable. A lot of people didn't adapt to the pandemic quickly. A lot of people are not adapting to the coming, back into school during the pandemic. But those skills that we build, they are adaptable, and they can be used in a way to deal with the ever-changing and shifting and transitioning world that we currently live in. So I can't say it enough. We have these skills, we have these tools here, and then they are powerful as much as the energy and the time that we put into using to develop them and the value that we see within them. So let's keep building those skills and those tools and help to understand the value and not rely on substances to try to just feel good. So I understand that 34%.
So in the spirit of sort of a social jujitsu, we see the increase, but we can also leverage that to react in a new way. I mean, again, people were straying away from the formal structure of academic environments, right? Schools were closing, attendance is down. We had that. There were increases in usage. There are stats that support that. But what I think is overlooked is the fact that we have the ability to reset as we're re-entering a new school year. We can include social emotional learning tools and techniques into the school environment to minimize substance abuse and associated social ills. So as we look at that opportunity, what do you recommend that basically we as adults, as the community, what needs to be available to our youth so that we can maybe curtail some of this rampant social substance abuse?
I used to drink too much. I used to overindulge. Love beer. I used to drink way too much until I got some support from friends, until I got some insight into myself from folks who were like, James, you're drinking too much. And it was love. It was love because they saw where I wanted to go. They saw what I wanted to do. And they saw that I was trying to manage the stress of going for my potential, going for my goals, while just taking some time and just drinking too much, getting drunk. And having that support, having that mirror, and then also having tools built around it, but even in my yoga community and finding different communities to put that energy, to put that focus was instrumental in me. I don't drink it all anymore because I know it's just not for me. It's not going to give me the results I want. So when we are including our social emotional practices, it's not just, hey, do some yoga, breathe and all that. It's about having community. It's about having relationships. It's about having a mirror that you can look back into that's also going to be supportive and loving and caring and provide you with the tools that you need to move forward with the potential that you have. Now, a lot of youth don't have that. They don't have anybody telling them, hey man, we see what you're going, we see what you want to do. And I know you probably think smoking that blunt, drinking that beer is going to help you become Superman and do what you ever do. But here goes some other options. Here goes some more things instead of just saying, dare, resist against drugs, don't do drugs, this, that. No. And, like I said, just being a real person. I drank too much, had an alcohol problem. And I have to say it was a problem because I got into problems with it. And seeing that, it was like, this can't be done, but I need to put this energy into something else. And those social emotional skills was there for me to develop a sense of value in my time, in my energy, and in myself to leave behind the substances and move into more productive and more healing practices that could help me to be of healing and support to other people. If I'm interacting with somebody that's young and they 21 or somebody that's young, kids always, they don't care now. They talk about marijuana. Like, you're still a kid, you can't use marijuana, but they'll talk about it. I'm like, okay, I hear you. You want to take away the pain. You want to not relive the trauma. You want to deal with, I get it. But here are some other ways. I understand you think smoking is the magic. No, here are some other ways. And other ways that don't cost you, a dub or a dime or whatever. You ain't got to sneak and do this. Here's some other ways. I'm showing love to you. I'm supporting you. I'm telling you, I'm not just beating you over the head. Don't do drugs. I'm letting you know, I see what you're doing. I see who you are. And here goes some other ways and some other tools. So being that loving, that supportive, that caring structure, either for the educators, for the students, for the administrators, and providing them with some actual tools instead of just don't do that, can be very detrimental in helping to shift from substance abuse to social emotional learning practice.
James, you just provided a very clear path to more effective practices and fortunately more effective solutions as we battle this front of substance abuse, the causes and the results. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to see you actually interact with small groups, with groups of youth, groups of professionals, with your message of healthier choices. And frankly, I want our audience to know, how do they find you?
Cool. And I'm glad you didn't see me when I was drinking. I was a wild boy. But they can find me at Dat Yoga Dude, DatYogaDude.com. Dat Yoga Dude, Instagram, Twitter. What else is there? TikTok, that one. Don't have a Snapchat. I feel very old even saying that. But anywhere that Yoga Dudes are bought and sold, you can find that Yoga Dude. I got that from James Lott Jr., so shout out to James Lott Jr. But yeah, you can find them D-A-T, D as in dog, A as in apple, T as in Tom, YOGADUDE, thatyogadude.com.
And there you have it. Again, James, Dat Yoga Dude Woods. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your solutions. Again, I'm Glenn W. Hunter. This is the Feel Free to Feel Free podcast. James, I'll let you take us on out.
Yes, and don't forget to go to Glenn. What is your website?
GlennWHunter.com,
Yes, go to
as
Glenn.
well as Hunter and Beyond LLC.com.
Beyond. Check it out. Amazing stuff. So as always, feel free to feel free and namaste. Thank you so much. Peace.